Hello internet, we both know why you're here. You for some reason want to recreate this Nosemouth prosthetic. The camera quality is going to vary a lot because some of this was filmed during a live stream. I rely on a lot of feedback from people while I'm making things because sculpting is hard. So to start off, I used a life cast, but if you don't have one, you don't have time to make one, that's actually completely okay. You will need a flat surface that you can easily transport because you're going to need to move this thing around and easily manipulate it. So you're going to take your clay and you're going to make worms. You're going to put it in your hands and break off. I used my Tom Selleck, which is just kind of like it's a metal piece, to like break off chunks of my clay to use. You could also use like those like kitchen scraper thingies. Those are also really handy. But you're basically going to make worms and put those worms in the shape of a nose, either on your life cast or on your plate or flat surface if you don't have a life cast. I will say if you are using a flat surface and you don't have a life cast, I would recommend getting like an eyeliner pencil or something and just like hold it up to you and try to make sure that you're going to make the nose large enough. I'm not the brightest person around, but it seems like when I'm sculpting things, I forget what the real size of things are and what things really look like. Also, as a note, if the goal of your giant nose is for it to really look really similar to your actual nose and not just a generic big nose, make sure you get a few really good close-up reference photos of your own nose. Even if you're just making a generic nose, try to get yourself some really good reference photos. Once you have that general shape down, then you can kind of smooth all of that clay so you have a nice little foundation and you can make more worms of different sizes and start building that up. So if you do not have clay tools, that's actually okay. If you have makeup brushes, and this is what I used to do a lot, because like I actually used to get clay from Dollar Tree. You can get like a cute little 4-pack of stuff from Dollar Tree. Dollar Tree is amazing. And I didn't have clay tools. So I would get the $1 pack of clay from Dollar Tree, and you then get makeup brushes, get all different sizes. Make sure you have like, some really big ones to help you smooth stuff out and just kind of like feather down edges. And then make sure you have like little ones for like the detail stuff. But if you have like makeup brushes and you use the butts of the makeup brushes for your clay tools, and then besides like having the butts of makeup brushes, get like a butter knife. If you have like tongue depressors, if you have brushes with really stiff bristles that are going to like hold their shape and stuff, these are all things that you can really easily use as an alternative to clay tools. It might take you a little bit longer to work on your sculpt than what if you had clay tools, but it's amazing practice. You still get to kind of learn how your clay behaves. I will also say, besides using your clay tools or your brushes, once you have like your nose looking pretty much how you want it to look, when you really want to smooth it down, if you have you probably don't have like mineral spirits, but if you have mineral spirits, that's great. But you can also use 91% alcohol, which again, you could get for crazy cheap for like $1 at Walmart, and use your 91% alcohol with your stiff brush and just kind of like work it around in circles and just kind of like really dig into it. And the alcohol will kind of dissolve and help you smooth out your sculpt so it's not like crazy bumpy looking. Something else that it's probably obvious, but I'm going to say it anyway. Make sure that the edges of your sculpt, this is like the nose that I made, that you are, use like, especially like your big boy brush and try to like really like make the edges as thin as possible on your sculpt, because it's going to help the payoff when you actually like apply the real thing, and with your blending. It'll help you like hide where the nose stops and your real skin begins. So make sure those are nice and thin, which is, again, that's another really great thing about using your alcohol and your stiff bristled brush. Okay, so now what you're going to do, you're going to whip out your Vaseline, and you're going to use your fingertips and use Q-tips to just rub Vaseline all over your sculpt. Hello everyone, Editing PT here. I just noticed that in the stream footage for this specific nose, I did not put Vaseline on it, so I'm just telling you to ignore that and just pretend like I put Vaseline on it, because it's going to make your life a lot easier if you do that. Okay, thanks, bye. This is going to basically serve as like a mold release. So now what you're going to do is you're going to get a glue gun and a lot of glue sticks. However many glue sticks you think you need for this thing, double it. It's not going to be enough. Start by basically making a border around your entire sculpt. Make sure there's like a little bit of room. It's going to work out better for you if there's like a lot of room to work with, and you'll be able to trim down your prosthetic versus if you make the border too small and you need to somehow build it up. It's going to be way easier. So just give yourself some like wiggle room around your sculpt. Once you have like the little border all around, then basically just fill the whole thing in with hot glue. I've never seen anybody talk about using hot glue sticks for prosthetic molds, but it is cheap. It's very fast. There's no mess. It's just, it's fantastic. And there are going to be downsides that I'm going to talk about later, but I use hot glue for basically everything. Once you have hot glue covering the entire thing, you can go ahead and let it sit somewhere and get in a few games of Overwatch. Or I guess you should probably make the gelatin that it's going to be made. Okay, right, okay, turn off Overwatch. I've got to go back to work. So the most basic recipe for like homemade FX gelatin is going to be unflavored powdered gelatin, like you can get like in the baking aisle of any grocery store. Glycerin, you can get this at like a pharmacy, or if you're near like a Walmart Supercenter, the pharmacy area in there, it's going to be probably like with skincare. Most people use it on really dry skin. And water. So you're basically going to mix roughly equal amounts gelatin, glycerin, and water. And I know that a lot of people pop it in their microwave. I prefer to constantly stir it over heat on the stovetop. And you're basically, the goal is just to melt those gelatin crystals. Once you have the gelatin crystals melted, this is where you'll be able to go ahead and add in your pigments. So this could be foundation, it can be powder pigments such as your eyeshadows. If you like, and again, like Walmart or Dollar Tree, you can get like, you know, eyeshadows to use as powder pigments. I've gotten some like really cheapo, vibrant, like palettes from Amazon as well, specifically for the purpose of using them in gelatin mixtures. For this, I used foundation and a little bit of acrylic paints. When I've seen people like mixing pigments into like silicone prosthetics, it seems like they tend to try to mix in like, you know, a yellow, red, and blue like in really small amounts, and it's supposed to give it more of a skin-like texture because skin isn't just one color. Our skin is made up of a lot of different colors layered on top of each other. So just for kicks, like I had my foundation in here, but I also had some white, some yellow, some blue, and some red acrylic paints mixed in specifically to give it more of an inconsistent texture. Go ahead and remove the glue mold from your life cast or from your plate and remove the clay from it. If you used enough Vaseline, it should, for the most part, the clay should just pop right out. And if not, that's completely okay. You can use Q-tips and brushes with your 91% alcohol on them to try to get rid of the rest of the clay that's in your mold. One of the downsides of using a hot glue mold, you're going to notice that no matter how quickly or smoothly you apply the hot glue onto the clay, when you look inside of the mold, there's going to be some like cracks and creases and stuff that you didn't intend to be there, but it's just the hot glue just dries so quickly, they're unavoidable. But this is where you whip out your magic $1 mold release, because besides working as a nice mold release, the Vaseline will fill in all of those cracks for you completely. Won't even have to worry about it. So you can use your fingers, a brush that you don't care about because Vaseline is really hard to get out of brushes, and Q-tips, and you just go ahead and fill in the entire inside of your mold with Vaseline, and it's perfect. And basically make it as thick a layer as possible where you feel like it isn't changing the shape of the mold. You don't want to put like a bunch of globs of Vaseline in there and then it's going to reflect on your gelatin. Just smooth it on in there as thick as you feel comfortable. Okay, so now what you're going to need a container. And you're going to use either clay, or if you have little rags, like little towels that you can roll up, go ahead and put your clay and put your towel rolls inside of that container, and then put your mold on top of that. And basically you want to arrange it so that when you let the mold go, it doesn't fall over, because these things are basically going to be adding stability while the gelatin is setting. Once you have everything set, also make sure that you do like kind of like a test run with your mold, like kind of like push on it a little bit. Something to be aware of as well, and again, another downside of using a hot glue mold is hot glue is really like bendy, so you want to make sure that like if you're using clay especially, that you're not accidentally squishing it and you're actually changing the shape of your mold, so just be aware of that. So go ahead and pour in your gelatin. If you have a life cast, make sure you're putting Vaseline all over your life cast, as thick as you can make it. If you do not have a life cast, then just pour your gelatin in and you're fine. You're already good to go. If you have your life cast, put your life cast in the mold and go ahead and pop this thing in the freezer. I would say 45 minutes just to be safe, especially like if you're making kind of a bigger boy one like this one. Because it's just really frustrating if you pull it out too early. Also, like, besides making sure that the gelatin is entirely firm, and it's like completely set, the firmer the gelatin is, the easier it is. It's going to be to remove from the mold. It's going to be less likely to tear. It's going to be nice and a little bit more rubbery than when it heats up. So it's just a better situation altogether if you make sure it's basically completely set. You don't want it to completely freeze, because that's when you get into a pieces chipping off situation, so probably less than an hour. And now we're approaching the fun part. Get it out. Get it out of the freezer. Use your fingers to really care, and I think you'll be able to feel out how careful you need to be. Move very slowly, because especially like the edges where it's thinnest, you don't want it to tear. And just carefully lift the prosthetic off of your life cast. Less homework for the people without a life cast to just remove it from your mold. This is where you can kind of get to examine if there are any like major flaws with it. If there's anything like any big pieces like sticking up from it, maybe like you missed filling in a crack in your mold and there's like something weird sticking out. The nice thing about gelatin is you can use hot water and a Q-tip, and you can just like rub on the gelatin to dissolve any really weird bits. You can also try to pre-paint it. I tried to just cover up like some major flaws, but I was planning on like contouring it and adding highlight and blush and all this stuff on my face. So I just kind of like briefly covered up some major flaws, but for the most part I was just going to paint it once it was on my face. For the people who don't have a life cast, this is where your homework really begins. So you will either need gelatin is probably soft enough, so you could use like a butter knife, a small steak knife, preferably if you have like a craft knife, just something really, really sharp. Very, very, very carefully start to dig into your prosthetic and gradually dig out pieces, and basically I want you to just constantly, like, it's gonna end up looking something like this on the inside. So like you dig out a space right here for your nose and just constantly hold it against your nose and your face and just kind of feel out how that feels, you know? And what's gonna end up, I'll also make sure you're digging out, actually people also with a life cast, I can't believe I forgot this. People with a life cast, you're going to have to dig some extra room in here as well, because you're probably wondering this entire time, how are you breathing? And the answer is the nostrils. You're gonna dig out as much as you possibly can, as much room with the nostrils, dig into the nostrils, and then you're gonna cut two little tunnels leading to your real nose. So like my real nose is sitting up here, and like that's my mouth. So I want to basically make a nice little, like as wide as I possibly can tunnel leading to my real nose in here. I will say something as well, be kind of careful to not make it too thin, because I did, and what ended up happening is this is quite heavy. That's one of the downsides of gelatin is so affordable. It's amazing. It's reusable. But, you know, when you're using like these cheaper alternatives, we just have to do a little bit more work. If you make this part too thin, then with how heavy it is on the bottom, it's actually going to distort the shape of the prosthetic, which is what ended up happening with me. I didn't build this up enough, so there was like enough structure to it. Luckily for me though, like noses are pretty ugly a lot of the time, and people thought that like kind of the weird shape that it had to it was intentional and it was just part of the design. But it's just something to be aware of. But just make sure, and obviously do a ton of test runs. Make sure you can breathe with it. Hold it to your face a little bit. Take your selfies. Do a TikTok. Like just try it. Make sure you feel like you're not struggling for air at all. Okay, so if you do not have adhesive, if you have like a lot of eyelash glue, you could give it a go with this. Most preferably though, you're going to have a skin safe adhesive such as Prozaid. I prefer using Prozaid cream. I glue a lot of heavy stuff to my face, and I feel like Prozaid cream just helps. Like I feel like I could really glue basically anything to my face and it will not come off. Or like, regular Prozaid, or again, cheap option, liquid latex. But absolute worst case scenario, if you do not have eyelash glue, if you do not have liquid latex, I know Prozaid cream, most places you're gonna have to order it online. I'm in Oklahoma, there's no FX stores here. You can actually use gelatin as an adhesive. It's going to be a really, really tricky time, so I would recommend either get a big old tube of eyelash glue, which eyelash glue has a fair amount of liquid latex in it, and you can use it as an adhesive for this. I have not personally tried using gelatin as an adhesive with this, but what that would entail is basically you might need to water down your gelatin a bit more so it's a bit more like brushable on, but putting like wet gelatin all over the edges, putting wet gelatin on your face, and immediately sticking it on, holding it on there as long as you can, and then trying to use gelatin to help like blend your edges. Okay, but yeah, you could like hold this up to see exactly like where you need to put your glue. Put your glue all wherever your nose is gonna be. Put it all over your nose. Once you have this thing glued on, then you're going to use some more of your adhesive, whether it's Prozaid cream or Prozaid or your liquid latex, and just apply that all around the edges to just kind of try to blend your edge. If your edge is really, really thick and it looks really, really bad, it's not the end of the world yet. You can try building up your adhesive to try to kind of like match where the edge is. It's just going to take a little bit extra time. If the edge is really, really bad, here's something that I used to do. If you have Q-tips, or I probably wouldn't use cotton. You could probably use cotton balls, but I've done it with Q-tips before. You take the fuzz off of it and get it like as thin as you need it, and then just like kind of like place it along the edge, and it kind of, as you put more adhesive and stuff on top of it, it just kind of helps to match your skin and make more of a transition. Once you have the nose nice and secure on there, then you could go ahead and, if you have foundation, go ahead and put foundation all over, do whatever eye makeup look you're doing. Oh, also, okay, here's another thing. If you have a really, 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 really bad edge, your friend is going to be texture. Get a toothbrush, some brown paint, put it in the brown paint, do like a little bit of a test like on your arm so you don't go on too strong, and put some freckles on there. Freckles are going to help cover up like a bad edge. Texture will be your friend with bad edges. Something else that I did is I felt like it didn't look quite right, so like the nostrils weren't noticeable enough. I still looked a little bit like Squidward. So I actually used some black paint. It's kind of faded now, but I used black paint and I used black eyeshadow to try to emphasize the nostrils so that they were a bit more noticeable. And including, I did my contour, I did my blush, I did highlight, I did all the stuff I would normally do to my normal nose onto this nose. It was surprisingly comfortable. I adjusted to the weight of it on my face really quickly, and ta-da! You're a Nosemouth. You are a Nosemouthian. You're one of the Nosemouths, and just the reactions you will get from people on this everywhere. It's absolutely delightful. I really hope this was helpful. If you have any questions at all, you can comment them. You can DM me basically anywhere. I'm here to help. If I can help you do something really weird, I really, really want to, because we seriously need more unique, weird content on the internet. Whatever day it is that you're seeing this, I hope you're having a good one, and I will see you the next time I do video stuff.